What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Bourbon of the Week. My name's Chris. I'm going to be your host for today, and today we do not have a full bottle for our review, but we do have a sample here of Wild Turkey's Master's Keep Unforgotten. Very excited to have this. Thank you to a gentleman named Marshall, one of my patrons. I am absolutely ecstatic to try this. You know Wild Turkey is one of my favorite lines. This is right in my wheelhouse of everything I love on age and proof, but we're going to talk a little bit more about this as we get started. But let's pour this up. Let's take a traditional sip. Let's get right into it. We're not saving this. Everybody knows, time for the traditional sip. Cheers, y'all. Damn, that's good. So if you've been here since the beginning, one of the first things that I prided myself on was reviewing bourbons in my collection. That's how I got my start. I bought the bottles, I reviewed them. Then I realized I can't get my hands on every single one of these bottles that I want to review, and I started a community and have so many good people who send me so many good bottles, but yet up until this point, I've never done a review on anything I still haven't owned up until now. The second thing that we're doing is this is not a straight bourbon. I have only ever reviewed bourbons. I've never put ryes on the ranking sheet. This is a blend of their rye and their bourbon, so this will be the first time we're adding a half rye to the ranking sheet, but in the future, we are going to start adding ryes to this going forward. So I figured this was a perfect start with the Master's Keep. We love Wild Turkey. So let's get right into this one right here. You know the rules: price, taste, and drinkability. So as I just mentioned in the intro, this is a blend of their bourbon and their rye. We know their bourbon is 75% corn, 13% rye, 12% malted barley, the greatest mash bill to ever exist. And then their rye is 51% rye, 37% corn, which leaves us with 12% malted barley as well. I didn't always love their ryes. We have the Wild Turkey 101 rye. We have the single barrel rye. One was better than the other, but they're both, I would say, decent, nothing exceptional. So I'm excited to see how that blends with their bourbon. This is 13-year-old bourbon and then 7 and 8-year-old rye. Now, if I did my research correctly, which normally I don't, this is 105 proof. I don't have the bottle in front of me to confirm, but a lot of people online are saying this is 105 proof, so I'm just going to take them at their word. We're going to start with drinkability here. Let's take another sip. We got to be careful, though, because we only have a little bit of this to try tonight. So this is kind of tough, right? We don't know the exact blend of the mash bill that's going into this. We know it's a bourbon. We know it's a rye. We know the blends of the bourbon and the rye, but we don't know if it's 75% bourbon and 25% rye, or if it's 50-50 or whatever it happens to be. It's also some older stuff, like I mentioned, 6 and 7-year-old rye, and then 15-year-old bourbon in this. So I don't think it gives me a very bad drinkability, but at the same time, it does drink a little bit hotter than I was expecting. I always say if it drinks at its proof, I will start it at an 8. I don't think it drinks at its proof. I think it drinks right around like that bottled and bond 100 proof point. So we'll give it a little bit better score than an 8, but I got to take one more sip to find out. Now, I will say this. I normally have a glass of whatever I'm about to review, whether it be a week before I review it, the night before, or even the minute before I get on camera. I always try to have a glass of it just to try to get my tasting notes in order and everything like that. But for this, since I only had the sample bottle, I didn't have an opportunity to do that, which is going to make things fluctuate when it comes to price, taste, and drinkability. That being said, my traditional sip was my first sip of this and my first sip of alcohol for the night. The second sip was the drinkability sip. And I will say both of those drank a little bit hot, but by the third sip here, I can't even really taste alcohol when it comes to this. And again, it's only my third sip of alcohol for the night, and we're not even an ounce in. So let's think about this when it comes to drinkability. One more tiny sip. That's what we're going to do. Yeah, this drink's way under its proof. Again, 105 proof. This drink's, it's easy. It's almost dangerous. I'm going to give this like a 9.17 when it comes to drinkability. You don't even know that this is 105 proof. And of course, that's going to get us into taste on this next. And I don't know if there's a better tasting whiskey that I've had in a long time. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I love Wild Turkey bourbon. I don't love their rye, but I think it's pretty decent. And at the end of the day, Wild Turkey isn't really known for their blending process, right? They have one mash bill. So they take a bunch of barrels, they put it into a vat, and that's their blending process. Whatever it happens to be, whenever it's aged, whatever part of the warehouse they want to pull it from, that's their blending process. This is different than a company that has different mash bills, that's blending different mash bills all into one small batch or whatever it happens to be. But Wild Turkey doesn't do that too often. And to do that well, it's definitely a skill, and it seems like they figured it out very quickly. And between Jimmy and Eddie Russell, right, all the years of experience, why wouldn't they be able to figure it out? Listen, let me put the glass down when I tell you this. This might be one of the best whiskeys I've ever tasted. This has everything that you're looking for. It's literally quintessential wild turkey with a little bit of extra spice on the end, but all that age to balance it out. You've got all that vanilla, that sweet oak, that toffee on the front of this. Then you move into that rye, you get that spice, and at the end you get just enough oak on this with that 15-year bourbon of this, but you still have old enough whiskey in this when it comes to the rye that it balances it out. The sweetness, the spiciness, everything about this, the mouthfeel, it coats the mouth so well, and at the end, the finish is long. It really doesn't get much better than this when it comes to a whiskey, at least not if you ask me. I have to apologize, I made a mistake. I said there was 15-year-old whiskey in this. It's only 13-year-old whiskey, which is even better because you guys know my wheelhouse is 12 to 13 years. Absolutely love that age statement. So let's take one more sip on this before we tell you an actual score when it comes to taste. I mean, if you don't like this, I don't know what you're really looking for. I gotta be honest with you. This is almost perfection when it comes to my flavor profile. I gotta give this damn near perfection when it comes to the score as well. 9.79. Again, there's always room to grow. I think that might be the highest score I've ever given, but 9.79 when it comes to taste on this. But of course, we do still have to mention price here, and the price on this bottle was $200. Now let's talk about that just a little bit. Wild turkey, 13 years old, 6 and 7-year-old rye in this, Jimmy Eddie Russell, limited edition, master's collection, great drinkability, great taste when it comes to all this. So what are we mad about when it comes to $200? I've spent $200 on Elijah Craig 18-year, which is only a couple years older than this. It's at 90 proof rather than 105, and it's some of the worst bourbon that I've ever had. I know bourbons that come out here that are 4 years old, sourced from MGP, that have a $150 price tag on it. I do not hate this bottle at $200. In fact, I think it's a very fair price, especially given the secondary market and how crazy that is. I think they're trying to price out some of that secondary stuff on this as well. So again, for $200, I like this all day, every day. I'm going to give it a 9.5. Straight 9.50 when it comes to price. What do you guys think about that? But hey, as I add these scores up, let's send it over to this week's Bourbon Bomb of the Week and learn a little bit more about how this got the name Unforgotten. So that's right, we haven't talked about why this has the name Unforgotten yet. And that's right, this goes back to 2008 when a gentleman actually who worked at Wild Turkey took an entire hose full of rye and accidentally dumped it into the bourbon batch. Now, rather than being mad, firing this guy, or dumping this entire batch, Eddie Russell decided to try it and he thought, this isn't that bad. And then they actually stored this whiskey for a couple of years, bottled it later, and called it Forgiven because they forgave the man that made this terrible mistake and made them a whole bunch of money on the way. And yet years later, we have the same thing where they're blending the rye with the bourbon, and it's called Unforgotten, so we don't forget the man they forgave, and that's why we have Unforgotten. So much like the potato chip and penicillin, this happens to be one of those happy mistakes in life that just worked out, so I will not forget that man, and this is cheers to you, whoever you are. Cheers, y'all. But hey, if you've stuck around this long, make sure you click that like and that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 5,000 by the end of the year, and I need your help. We're damn close, but not close enough. This bottle came in at a 9.48 repeating. We'll call it a 9.49, knocking Larceny Barrel Proof B521 off the top of the list and sitting atop the list. And this is our first sample and our first whiskey, so very good showing for the first time on those. Again, if you have any opportunity for me to buy this, make sure you reach out to me. Check me out on Discord, that link in the description below. Come check out our Patreon page. We do a lot of cool things just for Patreons. Click that follow button over on Instagram and TikTok as well. Please don't drink and drive. Always drink responsibly and stay healthy, stay happy, stay drinking. Cheers, y'all.